Okay, let's try again. Hi everyone, can you hear me and can you see something? I'm trying a new streaming setup. I will have a look at the live chat and hopefully you will confirm that you can hear me and see me. Let's see. Okay, perfect. Now I can even hear myself because I had it open in another tab. So, okay, cool. I can close this. I can just open my editor. Let me know if this text looks readable. Second, we'll try to start the stream. To start the game, I mean. Very funny. So, I'm quiet. Okay, I have my microphone at max settings. I can try to just speak louder. It's readable. Let's see if we can do something cool here and add me in the corner. There I am. Let's maybe use a smaller resolution for that. Let's put me somewhere in the corner so now you can even see me. Okay, so I would say let's use the first couple minutes to just do general Q&A, and then let's get started with some actual coding. I have about 1.5 hours for this live stream today, so let's see what we can get done. So let's do some Q&A. I'm really glad that you like the Rustfest talk, Lex. And if you're brave, you can try out with the prototype, which you can download to actually do the networking demo yourself. There's instructions if you go to GitHub. If you go to GitHub, you will see that my internet is slow. Let me check that I'm not dropping frames for you guys. Oh crap. Okay, what about now? Did it become better? Because now it shows here 5 kilobits or 5 mbits per second. I hope this won't happen again. This internet can be a little flaky sometimes. So, first question, how are you? I'm doing quite well. I'm really happy about the prototype. and that I finally managed to get it out. I'm really looking forward to doing something like this every month. And the only kind of challenge right now is that a lot of people on Windows are experiencing memory issues. Texamer will just continue to be passive-aggressive about the bug, which he and I think others also, including myself, encounter when building roads. And we could do different things today in the stream. We could either try to fix a bug, or we could try to add some new features already for the next month. So maybe let's start, if you don't have any other questions right now, with a little poll. Would you rather try to fix some bugs, which I imagine to be kind of boring to watch but worthwhile, or do we do some features? I think in particular I want to add a couple new business types and resources to Citybound. And remember that I can always fix the bugs later. Okay, I mean, I just kind of wanted to give you the illusion of choice. I think I would just do features anyways. So I will have to, from time to time, switch between the live chat and what I'm doing. I will try to make this simple for myself. So what we will start with is we will actually start a new branch, which I will call November 2017 prototype, which is where we will do everything for the next prototype. And I will probably need to reload my editor because something is crashing there. You probably can't see the very top of my editor, like it's kind of cut there. Because my monitor is slightly bigger than HD, but I think that's fine. We don't really need that part. So let's look at what we have here. We have lots and lots of stuff. And maybe let me give you a short introduction. What I want to do for the November release is that there is all kinds of businesses in the town that you would expect to find in a rural town, and all the resources which they trade, including trade with neighboring cities. So right now, if we look at which resources we have there in this neat little table here, it's only very few. Here the personal resources for people are only awakeness and satiety, and household goods, there exist only money and groceries. There exist no raw resources at all. So what I would suggest to do is that we actually expand the resources, starting with groceries, and think about which raw resources go into that and which additional businesses we need for that. So we could start out by saying that we will need, let me just copy this. Crops to produce groceries. Ownership, this only really applies to families, and since families don't buy crops, we can just put whatever here. And this also really doesn't matter because only businesses will buy crops. Grains and other produce needed for food. or for groceries. Let's call it like that. And then let's create, and sorry, I'm a bit slow here, I didn't do a programming live stream for a long time. Let's already add in the households a new folder for, I guess we will need a crop farm. And let's see how we will continue from there. If we just start the game right now as it is, I think that we should be able to see crops as a new resource already appearing. So if I compile the game, I think we should be able to see crops as a resource that households can have. And by households, I mean families, which won't make sense, and we will fix that later. But first, let's just try to get the crop farm going. So if we now build a road and just wait for some buildings to appear. If we look here, that we see now that it automatically added this new entry crops, even though families don't need that at all. So this worked. We have the resource in game. Hope you can see how that was pretty easy. Let me actually close all of this other stuff. So now we will open up the grocery shop, since that's the only business that exists right now, and use that as a base to create our farm. Oops, I just started some process that I didn't want to start. Okay, let me quickly check that OBS is still doing fine. That looks good, no dropped frames. So we can get started on the crop farm. Let's create a new file. And then we can hide the sidebar. Oh, I keep pressing that. Okay, so we can use this as a template. So let's start defining what a crop farm is. What does it need? Like all actors in the game, it needs an ID. It will also have a site, so like a building which is housing the farm. We will first just put the farm into a building like it's an indoor farm, you can imagine, because right now I don't really have the land parceling technique, I would call it, that's needed to have actual fields. So we will just pretend that the farm completely fits within one building, okay? So here we also just have a building ID referring to the building that this is in. Of course, we will need to have resources, and for that we can already, let's copy some stuff here. We will probably need a lot of that as well. Oops. If you have questions in between, just post them in the chat and I will check from time to time. So this is actually, I added a shortcut for this. Resources is just in inventory. So here. So the farm has its own inventory. And then it will have two things. It will offer crops. So we will have a crops offer, which will refer to an offer, which I will explain in a second what it is. And it will also have a job offer. People can work at a farm. Okay, that's that for now. Let me quickly check the chat. Yeah, we could have huge flat buildings. We can do that. Actually, we can. The problem why I can't do that right now is because of a simple stupid assumption which I had, which was that all buildings are of roughly the same size, and I make sure that they don't overlap each other by just making sure that they're a certain distance from each other and a certain distance from the road. And that of course stops working once we have farms which are much larger than the other buildings and which need to be further away, and we also don't really know what shape to give them. So for now I would just more or less copy the building of the grocery shop, and we will just, for debugging reasons, make it somehow visually distinct from that, because it's really more about getting the resources working than anything else. So now that we have that, let's implement our farm. I think we should add it to the list of households here so the game actually knows about it. Should also just fill out some boilerplate here. I'll quickly copy that from the grocery shop. Okay. We'll also need this, and then we're good to go. Okay, so let's first define what should happen when a farm moves into an empty building, and here you already start to see that some things are not working quite reasonably yet. Again, something that I will fix, but we'll just build it into the current system as is, and then later I will make everything more reasonable by having actually different building types. Right now the buildings are all of the same kind, and they just change their appearance according to whether a family or a business inhabits it, which is kind of weird. But let's just roll with it for now. So we need to know which building to move into. That's pretty much it. And then we return a crop farm. So what do we need to do? We actually just need to create a crop farm with the ID and the site that we get passed. Resources. It's actually just new inventory. Hope I can say that like that. Yep. And then we need to fill out the 2 crop offers. So the new 2 offers. So offers describe what a business offers. Sounds like it makes sense, right? And it specifically describes a kind of deal that this business offers to customers or to employers. So let's start with the crop offer. We will register a new offer with the market. We will tell the market that this offer comes from us. That's why we write the ID into. This is something that really doesn't matter for businesses, only for families. We also inform the market where you can get this offer at our site, at our building. Then we need to specify when you can use this offer. So when can you get crops from a farm? Let's just say also during the day from 7 to 8 in the evening. And then we define the actual deal, where we have a list of resources. So we want to get the resource ID of crops. And let's say we sell 1,000 crops, whatever that means. We will invent the prices and everything later. We just put some values there now. And let's say 1,000 crops cost, for example, 500 money. So that means that the deal will be for 1,000 crops, you will get 1,000 crops and you will get minus 500 money. So it costs 500 money. And it basically, let's say it just takes 5 minutes to actually load them, or let's say 10 minutes to load them when you go to get them. Like, it doesn't really take much time. Okay. Then save this so it does the formatting. Let me check whether everything is still alive. If you have any comments or questions, just spam the chat. I will be happy to interrupt and pay attention to that. So for the job offer, you can see on the right what the conditions of the job offer of the grocery shop are, and we can try to come up with something a little different. So again, all of this doesn't really mean much. We say that the job offer also happens at the side of the farm. When can you work at the farm? And for how long? So let's say that you can actually start working at the farm quite early, because that's what farmers do, right? And you can also begin working up until 3 in the afternoon. We define a new deal, which just brings money. Because the employee basically just exchanges time for money. So the duration, let's say that you have to work 7 hours at a time as a farmer. We'll probably also need all of that, so we can already import that. I should call it crops offer. Okay. Hi there, Planet 10. We're implementing farms right now. Oops. So now, since crop farm will also be a kind of household, we will need to implement it being a household, which basically means that it will have to implement a lot of different things, kind of like a contract that it needs to be able to respond to if someone tries to get a deal from there or something like that. So I will just go through these for crop farm. First, if we can just copy these from the grocery shop. If we receive a deal or have to provide a deal, we just apply that to our inventory. We don't have any tasks yet, such as families do, because the crop farm won't send any actors anywhere. So we will just leave all of this implemented. We will actually need to change the implementation of grocery shop once we add the interaction between the two, where now the grocery shop needs to, for example, send out trucks to get crops from farms. Or we could do it the other way around and have the farm send its crops to grocery shops which are interested. Thank you, Metmu. Very much appreciated. So now is something slightly more interesting, the decay function, where we basically describe how the farm will change over time, its resources, just because of natural things happening. And for that, I would suggest for the beginning that we just assume that the farm is this thing which slowly generates crops. So can kind of copy this code from here. Right now the supermarkets, but this code is not even hooked up. We will need to hook it up. The idea will be that the farm just slowly generates crops over time, and the way we do that is that the simulation continuously calls the decay function on this, and we will slowly increase our crops just magically out of nowhere. We won't even have any logic yet, like checking if there's someone employed or not and making it dependent on that. We will just do it like this for now, and we will need to see if this factor is good. What should happen if our farm is destroyed? Because, for example, the player builds a road on top. We should let our building know that we moved out. And we should withdraw both our crop offer as well as our job offer from the market, so that all employees find new work and that all customers of our crop offer go somewhere else. Okay, and then we will need to write some UI code that gets used when we click on a farm building. And again, we will just copy the code from here, because it should first just display which resources this crop farm has. Okay. Let me fix a couple errors here. It's called crops offer. We should say how much money it costs you get, of course. So for the grocery shop, we said that you earn 50 over 5 hours. We could make the farming business pay a little less, so we could say 60 over 7 hours. And that should be that. So now all that's really needed to make our farms start existing is that when we spawn buildings, that sometimes we also put farms in there. Again, kind of a little backwards, but for now the quickest way to get them in. So let's open the code for buildings, and then in the building spawner, we somewhere decide here. So what this means is basically that so far we had a 1 in 6 chance to spawn a grocery shop instead of a family. And let's add another 1 in 6 chance to that. That we spawn a crop farm. So we need to import that. Where do we import? I see here. That's kind of a weird place. Let's move that to the top. Then let's also import move into this building ID of the building which we just spawned. And then tell the building which we just spawned that it should add a household, which is our farm. And I think right now, without doing anything else, the farms will look identical to residential buildings. So let's just compile and launch the game and see if we can discover some by clicking on them. Yeah. Regarding this bug which you're describing, was it after you deleted some roads that driving in a circle can happen if the pathfinding gets screwed up and the cars don't actually find their way home? I had that happen once to me. I will need to investigate what causes that exactly. It seems to be something pretty rare, where it like depends on some timing of you somehow manipulating the roads while the cars are using it in a specific way. Yeah, now you can see that sometimes compilation can take quite some time. But it is what it is. We can do a thing. Hi Jagadilio, I'm glad that you could make it. Nope, nothing changed in that city. That's really interesting then. If you still have it open, could you just take a screenshot so I can take a look at the situation? That would be really helpful. So Jagger, just because you joined, we're implementing a crop farm right now, at least a very simple one. It's an indoors crop farm because we don't have the technology yet to render actual fields. But we're just trying to get it into the game with the new resource of crops and then connecting that to the grocery shops. So let's build something quickly. And then once buildings appear, See some of them. This is a family. Basically, here is a crop farm. So this building right here looks like it's a family building, but it's actually a crop farm. It's not doing anything right now, but it can exist. So next we will hook it up with the simulation so it first actually slowly generates crops. In theory, if we speed up the simulation again, it should be possible that people start working there. But maybe our town is too small and everyone is saturated, or everyone rather prefers to work at grocery stores. We can try to see if we can find, here's another crop farm, but also no one works there. And I guess the reason is that people actually do evaluate what is the best deal to earn some money. And if they can earn more money as a cashier at the supermarket store, there's no reason for them at all to go to the crop farm, since there they would earn less and it will take longer. And right now, every grocery store offers an unlimited number of jobs, which is again somewhat weird and limiting. But let's try for a second to just remove grocery shops completely and see if people will then start working at farms. So a field might be the easiest thing ever, a yellow square over the whole lot. Yes, sure, but we don't have lots right now. Buildings are just sitting at a point and all I do is make sure that they are not too close to each other. There isn't really something such as a lot right now. That is one of the other things which I wanted to get working this month. When do I plan to multi-thread everything? I will probably do that sometime soon, just as a side project to the actual features of the month. It shouldn't take too much work, but I don't want to commit to anything there since it's not dearly needed yet. So let's recompile the game without grocery shops and see if people will start working at farms. It's interesting, sometimes the compilation is quite fast and sometimes it takes super long depending on which parts of the code you touch. And maybe it's just my raised awareness now because I'm streaming, but this just feels like forever. You can still see the small spinny thing. Oh, you probably can't see the bottom of the screen either, right? Yeah. So in the bottom, which you can't see, there's a small spinny thing telling me that the game is still being compiled. Yeah, I know famous last words, multi-threading shouldn't take too much work, but I built the whole architecture to support that, and actually to a great degree networking already works. And multi-threading is a much simpler problem than networking because you don't even have network delays in between processor cores. The borrow checker actually doesn't help me a lot with the multi-threading because I do multi-threading by just doing message sending everywhere instead of normal function calls. So what I will do is basically treat each processor core as a networked computer, and then there's no problem of them sharing resources. It just happens to be a computer that you can exchange messages with much faster than any actual network computer, if that makes sense on such a high compressed level. Let's quickly check what I wanted to check. That people will start working at farms. But I guess not, and that's bad. Maybe I just built a stupid city where nothing is connected properly. Let's add a couple more cross connections. That road didn't build, that's weird. Should exist in theory, another bug. But let's quickly zoom through the night, but it seems as if, let's see, do we have crop farms? Yes, here's a crop farm, but no one works there. Let's see what will happen in the morning. Nope. Still no one works there. So let's look again here. When we create our crop farm, we create this offer with the market. We can actually enable a debug feature, which I added to families, where every family has a small decision log where you can see which offers they actually looked at. So let's enable do family logging and display that in the UI, and then we can use that to debug what's actually going on. Let's try that. Let's see how quickly that will recompile. Just out of interest, how many of the people watching the stream currently and like being active in the chat have tried out the newest prototype on their computer? Like, doesn't matter if it crashed or it worked, just did you give it a try or not? And please let me also know if not, just to get an overview of how interested people are in that at that stage. See, this time the compile was much faster for some reason. So now if we look at a family, this is actually a crop farm, but if we look at a family, we should have here this family log. I can make this window big. You can see here that they're looking for groceries. Okay, I see. Okay, because they're trying to find groceries, they don't even think about money yet because they're doing fine on money. Money is not even popping up as an important issue here. So I guess we do need the grocery shops back in, but we could do this silly little thing where grocery shops actually don't offer employment. So for a second we just completely remove the job offer from here. All right, that's really cool to hear that so many people gave it a try. Unfortunate that it crashes very often. I think I will actually make one of my main priorities to figure out the memory allocation crashes on Windows. It's really unfortunate because I can't reproduce them at all. And the people who experience it also don't get more information from the game other than memory ran out, but it happens at a completely mysterious point in the program, and I have no idea how memory could run out because these people still have plenty of RAM left. So that's something that I will need to investigate. How many threads do I use for compiling? 4 of them, which should completely saturate my CPU. No, I'm pretty sure that I compile it in 64-bit. I will need to check that for Windows. But that might actually be an explanation, because of memory fragmentation you could then run out of memory even before you reach the 4 GB mark. So that might be the simplest thing. It's definitely 64 gigabytes on Mac and Linux, but I will have to check about Windows. But I think that by default it always kind of ugly here. By default it always uses the same architecture as I build on, and that's definitely 64-bit Windows. So let's have a look. So I wanted to check now. Grocery shops don't offer jobs anymore. So we should see people. Let's try to find a crop farm. Let's make this window smaller again. No crop farms. Yeah, maybe in the next step we should already make them visually distinguishable. Otherwise I will spend way too much time hunting them down. Here's a crop farm, but no one works there. Let me just quickly retry with a different village. I just don't understand how it doesn't happen for me on Windows, because I have the same exact setup, but I will check that out. Okay, so people apparently went to work here, which is a crop farm, and this crop farm lost a lot of money, which meant that it gave wages to people. So people can actually work at crop farms, which is what we wanted to check. So next we wanted to make sure that the decay works, which we defined earlier, and we will reuse this code from the family here. So this should do the trick, and then we just need to tell the simulation that it should now also simulate crop farms. I do that here, yeah, okay, so and now we can tell the simulation here that please broadcast to all local crop farms, so the ones which are running on this computer, that they should be updated by the simulation. We will need to import some stuff here. Instant And where does that come from? I guess up here. Let's also do this update the crop farm every 4 seconds. Why don't I see these? Interesting that it crashes your debuggers. I will try if I can get the debugger working on Windows. You said, who of you said that? Was it Chokma who said that it runs for a minute? It would be super interesting to see if you can somehow track the memory usage over this 1 minute, if it actually like uses a lot more. I asked other people as well to see just how much RAM CD1 actually takes, but they say never really more than 50 megabytes, so that's really weird. Okay, now we should be able to see how the farm slowly produce crop. We can also add back the job offer of the grocery shops. And we can actually start just for fun to invent some very simple graphics for the farm so we can visually distinguish them. So we will need this file and this file. Okay. CD1 grows by around 1 megabytes per second when nothing is done. Okay, so about Text and Mirror's question quickly, thank you for this info. That's good to know. Regarding the side question, you saw that it's relatively easy to add resources. That was literally just an entry in a file. And then the building types and household types, what's important there is that they might all work slightly differently. So what I want to do first is to write down how they all work in code and just see which kinds of patterns emerge. Like for example, crop farms might need to sell their crops to grocery stores, and there's another kind of business which does basically exactly the same thing. And then I try to abstract from there and have these reusable parts, and then I can also make it easier to define new businesses which work alike. But in the beginning, where I'm not quite sure yet what all the different kinds of households actually need to be able to do, I just implement them by hand. So here's the game. Here's a crop farm, and we can see that it's slowly, very slowly generating crops. Since it's always selling 1,000 of them at a time, we can actually set this generation rate higher, since it will take forever for it to generate 1,000. Probably just multiply that by factor 10. Okay, that's super interesting. Okay, so we actually have a bug that it just allocates a huge amount of stuff. Okay, I will try to see if I can reproduce that anyhow. I think for me it was always doing something reasonable and not going crazy. Lex, if you have any kind of stack trace to where that happens, that would be super helpful. I don't know if there's enough debug information for the Visual Studio debugger to actually get a stack trace, but if you have one, the point when it tries to do the allocation would be really, really interesting to know. And thank you for trying that out, actually both of you. Yeah, that's really interesting. Okay, in the meantime, let's continue here. And let's define here first some building types. Right now I only had two, so I just use a boolean, but let's actually define them. So family house, grocery store, crop farm, and then this So what this function does is something super weird, where it tries to guess the building type based on its inhabitants, and we will just extend that to return one of our 3 building types now. So if this is true, then we have grocery shop, or grocery shop side. This is crop farm side. Let's call it like that. Otherwise, if this equals crop farm ID, this is super ugly code to write something weird. I will improve this in the future, don't worry too much. Then we have a crop farm side, and otherwise we have a family house. This should probably be singular. Okay, next we will need to change our architecture generating code. I think once we're done with our small investigation here, we'll actually take a screenshot and post it to the issue for future reference. Thank you a lot for trying around, that's really helpful. So we can actually try just for fun to add a very tiny field to our building geometry, which it can potentially have. So match, this here is actually building type. Okay, that's still very interesting. It definitely makes sense that something like this could happen. It's just really weird for me why it would happen only on one platform. Okay. Sounds like we're slowly finding the culprit. So first, let's just here say that basically neither grocery shops nor family houses have fields. So we just add a M-tree geometry there. And that's actually somewhat of an anti-pattern, so let me quickly create an empty function here which we can use. Yeah, I'm using incremental compilation. It's still very slow. Yeah, I don't know what the debugger, what the Visual Studio debugger lets you do, but if you have any way to see where the allocation happens, or yeah, from where it was allocated, that would be super informative. Okay, so let me quickly do this global refactor here. where I have this ugly pattern and I want to replace that with and this should probably pop up in a couple places indeed. So let's just replace them one by one. And let's save all of that. Okay, and then we can go back here. Nope, sorry. Back to architecture and start defining the architecture for our farm, which we will actually build very, very simply. Yeah, it is actually a build with the symbols in there, but it's probably not good for Visual Studio. That's why I will try to debug it with the C++ compiler for Visual Studio Code, which I'm using, or actually just with the development version itself. But yeah, you guys have been a huge help so far already. Thank you all very much for that. That's really cool. So okay, let's just do something quick and silly where we just use the footprint of the building and make that a field. And there's nothing else on there. Okay, and then in the rendering itself, we will need to add something to render fields. And let's try to come up with a color for the field so that it should be yellow, so roughly equal amounts of red and green. Let's try this. Add all the needed code. Mm-hmm. I think that should do the trick. Oops, there's actually an error. Let's check. Very silly one. We reload that. So our field is now basically a roof at height 0. This is how we're doing things right now. And let's see what that looks like. They will be super tiny. They will be just as large as the buildings themselves, but they will be there. Compile times or set times. I would suggest that since we have only roughly 15 more minutes left, that we take some time and together plan out the November release. Just jot down some features in GitHub that we would like to see. I think the compiler is actually slower now because the laptop also has to encode video. By the way, let me know how fluid the stream is for you, because ideally if your end supports it, it should be 1080p 60 frames per second. Here are our tiny yellow fields. Look at that. We have our crop farms. They're extremely tiny. I'm not even sure if the encoder is good enough to show you the subtle color difference. So let me see if you can see these glorious crop farms. Maybe I should rename them to cabbage farms or something. But there we go. Okay, cool. So actually I think that I would rather do the planning on my own and deliberately. So let's just do 10 minutes of Q&A or something like that. We can play around with the farms in the meantime. One thing that I'm actually interested in, which you might know if you have an idea about real life, or more of an idea about real life than me, which is, I mean, obviously there's still processing steps between crops and grocery stores. Like there is some food processing company, but do the farmers usually bring their crops there, or do they get picked up? Like, so make sure that you're using the correct nightly version of rustc as specified in the contributing file. There's instructions exactly which one you should install, and with that one it should work. Let's try to build a really large village just for fun. Interestingly getting laggy here with, I guess, long roads. I will have to investigate why that is the case, but I assume it's the collision detection between roads, which is not nearly as optimized as it could be. Okay, so I think what would definitely make sense is to have an intermediate step of a food, how do you call that, processor company, like who take crops and create more finished food products from that, which they then ship to grocery stores. So I think I would do the chain like farms ship to the food processors and food processors ship to the grocery stores for the beginning, and then we can always add like distributors and aggregators in between as needed. What exactly do you mean by have a company type for deliveries? Yeah, it's true. It would also be cool if farms can just sell stuff directly. Some farms do that. Would you consider importing converting maps from the real world from something like OpenStreetMap? Yeah, that's an idea that I've thought about quite often, that people have mentioned quite often. I think it should be fairly straightforward to write such a mod. It's obviously not a huge priority for me, but if someone wants to write it as a mod, that should be doable. I think in some cities, OpenStreetMaps even has information like how many lanes a road has, so that should translate fairly nicely into the game. That's super weird and interesting. Regarding the should have a left lane thing, by the way, I think I just got very used to which kind of operations I can do with roads and which not, so that I like naturally avoid doing something that will crash the game. Let's see if we can get it to crash by just building somewhat reasonable stuff. But it seems to happen to people all the time, which means that the road implementation is far from as good as it could be. And probably, especially if I don't align things as perfectly. Whoops, that's another bug. When suddenly you're below the city, especially if you don't align things exactly how the simulation wants them to be aligned. I think you can easily end up with, okay, that worked, stuff that crashes the game. Yeah, we also shouldn't forget about direct sale and markets, just because I also really like how markets look. That would be awesome to have in game. But markets are basically just a special zone for like tiny shops, which are the stalls, I guess. And now my laptop will run out of battery soon. Well, not that soon. I think we will make it to the end of the stream. Can't quite connect these two roads here, which is weird. So yeah, let me know your last questions that you might have. Oh. I hope that the stream is back now. Let me know if the stream is back again. So now all of a sudden, all of you guys can't reproduce the memory leak anymore. So I'm starting to think that it has something to do with the alignment of the moon or something. I will really have to check into that. Maybe just as a final piece of feedback, let me know how you like this relatively spontaneous stream, if you would like to see more programming live streams like this one again. Hopefully in addition to the patrons callings live streams. And in general, whatever questions or comments you might have. I will quickly link here to the issue which is about the memory leak. So if you find out something else, I would ask you to post it there. Did you just join Killer Mapper? Because I'm about to end the stream, I'm sorry. I had to end it kind of quicker today, but I will try to do more of them since people seem to like it. So here's the issue. I will also, can I somehow just try something crazy. I will print this. That doesn't do it too well. That shows just the last ones, I guess. Okay, perfect. Well, here's the link. I will take some. Is there some way to save the, can I just save this? Oh, that was you. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed that. So yeah, that would be super cool. If you want to do another one, let me know if I can be of any help for that. So I just saved this to the desktop. Can I see the full transcript here? Yes, I can. Cool, so I will be able to extract information from here somehow. Okay, then, if there's no other questions anymore, thank you everyone for watching. Another bug probably. Check out the other issues on GitHub. Oh, that actually sounds interesting. Can you please create a new issue on GitHub with that? So we did this actual kind of collaborative implementing a new feature and also investigating a bug live stream, which I think was really cool. Maybe for the future I can invent some other like more fun tasks than debugging for you guys to do, which would be super cool, I think. But let's see when we will get there. Once again, thank you all for watching, and see you all soon. I'm not sure if I will be able to do another live stream this weekend or not. If I will already again spontaneously with like one hour of countdown announce it. Yeah, take care.